This is the Lift Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Rupp. I am so thrilled to have a dear friend, mentor of mine, and mentor to thousands of people. Millions? I don't know if we're at the millions yet. Are we at the millions yet?
I think we're up to billions and
billions. Billions. You hacked the China market. Fantastic.
Finally.
Rabbi Doniel Katz, who is an educator in Yerushalayim and has recently launched and is launching multiple programs online, bringing his tremendous and unique Torah insights to the world, and is a favorite teacher amongst many students in Jerusalem and students that I've had the pleasure of bringing him to. And I think you took my sister in for a while, so thanks for that. That was nice.
This is great. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay, Rabbi Katz, welcome to the show. How are you?
Wonderful. Pleasure to be here. Awesome what you're doing. Go Rabbi Rupp.
Yes, thank you so much. Rabbi Katz, tell us a little bit. Obviously, you bring a level of aesthetic beauty and art to your practice. What's the background on that? Get us up to where you are right now.
Aesthetic beauty and art. I'm glad someone's paying attention. I used to be a filmmaker in a past life in the same body, into film and theater. Maybe that's where I got the aesthetic sense from. I definitely think that beauty is an exile, as some of the mystical writings say. So I don't think that's the focus of what I do, but I do think that there's no reason that Torah and mitzvahs and presentation of Torah education can't be presented in a more beautiful way. So that's part of what we do. But if that's the question you're asking, I have a film and filmmaking and theater making history. And, you know, that was a long time ago. And now we live in the less aesthetic, beautiful parts of the religious parts of Jerusalem. But I've been here for the last 20 years, more or less, a little less. It's been quite a long journey.
Get me into that journey a little bit. And in the process of your journey and what drew you from Australia to Yerushalayim, what also attracted you? Like, what was your influence with Hasidus, and how did you get that specific derech of your Jewish expression?
Right. I think a lot of people kind of have the derech, the path that they take within Judaism, within different sects. Sex is always not such a great word to me. It sounds like more cultish. But it's often like the first place they arrive at is the thing that they become. It's just default. If you end up going on a Ma'or trip and you end up going to one of the wonderful machans, that's great. If you're Makar and brought in by Chabad, and you end up kind of being that. I wasn't really brought in through anyone, okay? So I had a connection with the Lakewood Kollel in Melbourne, which is not known as a massive outreach organization. So I always say they were wonderful and sweet and caring, but somehow, you know, Hashem definitely makaraved me personally, and I appreciate that. Somehow I got here. I was always a mystical seeker. I was into theater and film, but I was always into Sufism and Buddhism and a lot of isms. And for me, the one place I hadn't looked, like a lot of Jews today, is my own backyard. And of course, without realizing at the time, I was quite resistant because nobody really wants, we probably have the worst branding of any religion in the world. And that says a lot, because I really think even compared to Islam, our branding is a little worse. There's a lot of discussion. Certainly compared to Buddhism, Christianity, they're often more sophisticated in media and presentation, all these things. But for me, I wasn't interested in ultra-Orthodox dogmatic religion. Certainly not Judaism. I think on the inside as well, there was some resistance we all have, because we sense that there's something there, even though consciously I absolutely did not sense there was something there. I got hit, struck by lightning multiple times. I had a trip to Israel that was very impactful to me when I really met some religious Jews for the first time. When I went back to Australia, I was looking into things, but it was really the things that were drawing me in was Aryeh Kaplan books about Jewish meditation. It was Akiva Tax books and lectures on mysticism. I was pretty naive. I did turn up to yeshiva thinking it was going to be a Jewish ashram, and it's not exactly an accurate description of what goes out there. And it took me about 18 years to recover from that. But for me, the mystical teachings were really profoundly motivating. The spiritual experience was something that was real to me before I identified as a Jew. I'd had profound experiences. I hung out with weird people that also lived and had those experiences. And I really wanted to understand that phenomena. And Torah in the end, and Kabbalah and Hasidus in the end, really spoke to that and explained that in a way more profound than other mystical paths for my sensitivities. I was exposed at the beginning to places like Asia Torah very briefly, and I appreciate what I learned there. But ultimately, some very powerful spiritual experiences that really shook me out in the momentum of my life. I want to be a famous filmmaker. I want to go to Hollywood, etc. All these kind of things. And really put me on the path to say, I need to find the source of these experiences. I need to understand them. So when I came to learn, and I learned in wonderful, more yeshivish kind of places, really most of all my time learning was spent in them. What really pulled me out of the momentum of those places was the search for, the spiritual experience, and the search to really have, devakas and shlemas, to really self-transformation on a deep level, and self-elevation, not about the brand, but just about the true experience of enlightenment. And what did that mean, and where was that? And those were the works that spoke to me, the teachers that taught that happened to be mystically inclined. So I was pulled on that path. Though I have to say, I'm very grateful that I got a wide exposure of many things, because I think it's sorely missed. As great as any yeshiva seminary is, there's something lacking. I always know as a people that have only been to one. They may have only been to Hasidic path, but not seen a LYLP path. May have been a LYLP path, not seen Hasidus. And I often find the most well-developed often are people that have exposure to both and appreciate the blessings of all. I think it's a very important thing.
Can I jump in on two sides of the question? Question number one is that we see that with these transformative experience programs that are now, very culturally popular, Burning Man, et cetera, you find this whole group of, I don't even think it's an undercurrent. Now it's like the main current of people that are seeking these transformative experiences, these altered states. There's a book that just came out called Stealing Fire about the what happens to your brain, and it's amazing.
It's a fun book, yeah.
So, and of course, at the underpinning of all of these books are Jews that are either running the program, starting the program, or managing the programs. And
I also noticed that pattern, yes.
It's absolutely crazy. So now the real question and the challenge is, you had the opportunity, I don't want to say opportunity, there was the part of you that made that commitment to go and learn. There was that part of me that made the commitment to go and learn. And depending on how old you were when you left and how old I was, I just graduated college. I didn't have like that much going on otherwise. But for a person that's 25, 30, 35, 40, and is drawn by this world of quote mysticism and loves the Burning Man and loves all these alternative conscious things, and they are Jewish, but maybe they're not going to make that commitment. What's that step where you start to connect them or explain the reasons why, if I want a transformative experience, halacha and Orthodox Judaism is the route to go?
That's interesting. Whenever you use the word mystical experience, you also put Burning Man in there. Now, I appreciate why that could be. There are many experiential, immersive environments and seminars which aren't as extreme and perhaps unstable, or even potentially as high as Burning Man. So we should, create perhaps a ladder that there's other places to explore. The path between the spiritual experience and the halachic path. First of all, we have to be very, very clear. The halachic path is a map to spiritual experience, right? I mean, without going into all the mystical understanding, I don't think this is like a learning format. It's a conversational format, which is wonderful and very much needed.
I know you can talk for like 10 hours straight, so I'm excited about that, but yes, go for it.
You're going to vote me in, and that's where you get paid the big bucks. And if you don't, I pray that soon you should get paid the big bucks. Halacha, the idea is we can live in a high spiritual place, but halacha creates a vessel to bring that consciousness down to earth. That's why the word for vessel is kli, and the letters halacha, the same numerical value as the word kli and vessel. But the challenge is that there's a problem. There's a lot of people that live with halacha, and they live with the vessel, but they've never been taught how to plug into the light. There's a lot of people in the world that plug into the light, but aren't taught how to bring that down. That's part of the challenge. I think the Burning Man is as unkosher as the environment is. I'm deeply highly cautious whatever words I use. I appreciate why people feel the need to go there.
100%.
And I think it's almost, if we don't like what's there, then we only have ourselves to blame. Because if we can't offer equivalent spiritual high experience, within a vessel of holiness, then those sparks will do fall to other places, and people have to seek them. Doesn't mean I'm giving this stamp to go, but I get why people go. And I know people that have gone there and have ended up in a Torah place. Now, in the self-help industry, we understand the difference between inspiration and integration. Okay, we understand the difference between the high and creating stability and maintaining a high in a powerful way in life. And we can argue the philosophic view that says life is not about a high. high life is about doing the hard work. But the many Torah sources that teach us across the board that we are supposed to live with Dveikus, we are supposed to live with connection. Tefillah is supposed to be that high, and Shabbos is supposed to be that high. And we see from many great spiritual masters, Tzaddikim, that was always true. And we need that, otherwise we will be left to have to flee to the Buddhist meditation retreats and the ashrams and the Burning Mans. So for me, what the bridge is you show me a person that has a normal Western secular life, whatever that means in a very generalized sense. And then they have that skyrocket blast out of their consciousness. Today, it's Burning Man, it's ayahuasca, it's an ashram somewhere, right? The problem is it's unsustainable for multiple reasons. And one of the multiple reasons is because we are multi-dimensional creatures, okay? We have a body, we have emotions, an emotional world, we have an intellect understanding, we have a soul consciousness, right? And if I jump out of all of those dimensions and I jump into a high, my brain doesn't know what happened, my intellect doesn't know, my emotions are still in the guard, I'm still dealing with pain and ego and lust and fear. My body has habits where I'm stuck in my life. And what I need is to hold that there is what we call the base of Mikdash, a Mikdash Ma'at. I need to turn myself into the Kabbalistic languages of Makava. I need to have a mind and a belief system which is aligned with higher beliefs and higher goals and aspirations and what are the morals and ethics that support a consistent, skyrocket experience. I need to have my emotions in line with experiences. Ask people what the experience is. Always love, unity, the interconnecting of everything. I need to be at peace within my own heart and not at war in my heart, as Rav Nachman says. He says that's the preparation to peace within ourselves, to make peace between soul and body, to make peace between the worlds, right? And I need to have habits that integrate those values. And when a person builds from the body up my habits into holy, healthy habits, and my emotions into emotional, healthy, integrated emotions, and my belief systems into healthy, wonderful, holy values, then what I'm creating is an alignment of my complete being, an alignment of the complete system, which allows me to live on that level, to understand that in all its depth. And to understand why that's there and who I am and how I connect to it, and to align my whole being to access it. So the halacha is not about halacha. It's not like, so why would we come into a boring legal system? What we come into it is an integrated path of human development, which allows me to move towards that. That's what halacha is. And if people know that halacha is a journey, halicha, and is preparing my entire being as a kli, then everybody gets that. In fact, people are hungry for that because they want to get back there, and they sense that a place like Burning Man gives them the high, but with instability. And they search in their hearts, if they're slightly balanced or healthy, to maintain that, but with stability. And that's what I believe the Torah has par excellence.
That's amazing. Now flip to the other side, which would be that I am, a halachic Jew that practices halacha, that's living in the world, that is not living in Yerushalayim.
That's easy. Those people have to go to Burning Man.
I was waiting. My wife, when I read Stealing Fire, my wife's like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. But honestly though, for like, as you mentioned, for so many people,
do I have to say I was joking there? I don't want to cut you off. I don't want to be put in the chayim for that.
No,
audience, they have a sense of humor and emotionally healthy enough. Okay.
I hope so. Okay. I might be going to Burning Man. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But the question is, for the person that seeks, and definitely I think a lot of us had that experience in yeshiva where we were connected, but in the process of going through life, and if you're not in a connected environment, and again, I know there's an extent that you have to try to create that for yourself, but so many Jews are spiritually dead and doing all of the quote right things. So what's the solution for those people?
This is something we thought a little about on our project.
Good.
What is practically the solution? Well, let's play a game. I can give the hashkafic, the philosophical answer. Let's play a real world solution, because a lot of rabbis and teachers and mishpiyim or rebbitzins who are into this stuff, there's all these correct and insightful spiritual things to say. We have to find spirituality with our own path, or we have to develop a sensitivity through Musaf Chassidus, we have to learn certain svarim. At the end of the day, it doesn't work. Now, I assume your audience has enough sense of humor to know when I'm having fun and being playful, and I have to be careful with myself. But I'll tell you what's happening on the ground. Let's talk about what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground is on an exponential level. Religious Jews are running to secular self-help, self-development seminars they are trying ayahuasca. They are running to other spiritual paths, be it Buddhist meditation techniques. They are immersing more and more explicitly in environments. It's recognized by those industries that there's more of those people with the funny hats and who are not eating the food catering at the events, who are coming in, they can't write on that seventh day, whatever they do. They keep. What's happening on the ground is a decision that more and more people are making. And I am not saying that this is good. I'm just saying this is what's happening, okay? And that is, people believe that they have a decision to make. They believe that I can keep going as I am and be miserable. And is this everybody? No, it's not everybody, but there's a growing population. Or I can go against what I understand as my tradition and my restorer, and I stop saying Torah should be enough. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is what happened. I've spoken to hundreds, literally interact with thousands of people who have this dialogue, who have this challenge, who ask these questions. And then they move beyond that and they have revelation. And many of them come back and then try and bring that and integrate that into halacha. And many of them aren't able to integrate that. And therefore it creates a hashkafic schism where, okay, I'll do my habitual observance of mitzvahs, and I'll go and do that meditation or that self-development technique or that ayahuasca drug for my spiritual expansiveness, right? And that is, I believe, catastrophic. It's catastrophic. Now, I'm going to just want to qualify that.
I'm crying on the inside. And you didn't mention jujitsu, but that's also part of the, I guess.
Jujitsu, again, I've missed that kind of heifer.
Yes.
But I'm confident about that as well.
Yeah.
So it's catastrophic, but my challenge is to everybody, to all of us holy Yidden that think it's catastrophic, that perhaps the only thing more catastrophic is if they don't go out. And I'm not saying that's the answer. I believe there's another answer. That's what we're working in LYLP on, right? So I'm not trying to set this up to promote anything, but I'm deeply troubled because I've been there and I've dialogued with so many people. This is what I do. I'm the Rabbanim behind this and the struggles. The more catastrophic thing is when people feel that they're dedicating their life to a religious system that is not being effective in their instant transformation. I'm not speaking, God forbid, against Torah. I believe Torah has it, but what we're acknowledging is that there's a voice of many that feel it's not giving it to them. Yeah. And these are people, Yirei Shemayim, that would deeply seek to access it. They would deeply love to access it if they knew where to look, if they knew where to find it. So this is troubling for us all. Have you been in some of this? Am I allowed to bounce questions back to you?
Ask me whatever you want.
This is Mutter. Is this something, I imagine you've spoken to people like this. Is this something you would define as similar to your own personal experience?
I have my credit card right here, ready to go. 1,000%. 1,000%. And it keeps me up all night also because the concepts that the self-help books promote of developing and growth and all of these things that are possible, where do you connect this back? And how do you find that in the Torah that we're getting, which is, again, it's very important, but, a Mishnah Berurah class or a short thing on being a real person. I just recorded pretend I recorded it initially, but I just recorded my first episode of the podcast. The real person is being lost in Judaism, and you feel like you have to hide that. You can't share that. You'll be judged. Your kids are never going to get married, and you just take all of this stuff and you just shove it under the table and pretend that doesn't exist. So 100%, yes.
Right. I don't even think people like to say this is part of it. Who's to blame? Do we blame the rabbis? Do we blame the Sfarim? Do we blame the Rosh Hashivas? I don't see what we have to blame. If you walk into a restaurant and someone serves, an outstanding piece of steak and outstanding potatoes, and then you say, I'd like some dessert, and they serve outstanding steak and outstanding potatoes. You say like a coffee, and they say, so you don't have to say that's a terrible restaurant. You can say, what they do is it's world class. It's medium rare. It's exquisite, right? The potatoes are, crunchy on the outside. It's wonderful. It's just that there's other things that are on the menu. So, I appreciate, we don't have to blame. I appreciate everything that's being done. I appreciate the U.S. Shema. I appreciate the access to Talmud Chacham, and I appreciate the Sfarim that we have in our door. These are wonderful, wonderful things. It's just that there's other things that are on the Torah menu. And, after 2,000 years of exile, as Hashem promised us as would be, we're depleted and limited on our access a capacity to access the full dimensions of Torah. And I believe with all my heart that our yearning for that is what will draw that out for the next generation. The fact that we are hungry for that, the fact that we pray and we scream and we cry, and if we don't get ourselves, we we see our children eating it, and the fact that we're hungry is, Emunah is moishech, is what the mystical writings say, that our faith draws that reality into the world. And I believe our yearning for that will draw in just other wonderful things to add to our menu, that's all.
So the idea is basically to live with that hunger and to try to figure out how do you fill that, and then that itself will bring in the solution that there'll be
not just live with the hunger as in stay hungry. I mean, there's that self-help line, stay hungry as in keep fighting. That's not what we mean, because there's too many people I know and too many communities I know are suffering. I've spoken to the Rabbanim that you can't stay hungry for so long that your system doesn't collapse internally, externally, right? So we're not saying, neither of us are saying stay hungry. You're supplying content right now. You're trying to feed that, right? But we have to not repress the hunger. We have to say that not only is that hunger is there, but that hunger is the fountain, soid v'shorish of our avoda. That's the samalachan nafshi, that my soul is yearning for Dvekas. My soul is yearning for tikkun. My soul is yearning for ava and yira and simcha and kedusha. If you repress that, what else is any of our mitzvahs of avodas Hashem? But what we want to do is we want to find kalim, vessels that teach us how to express and channel those feelings, right? And therefore, like anyone in the world, that when you have a yearning that, the environment you're in is not feeding that, then you have options. You have to seek things, alternatives. You have to create alternatives. And, then the game is on, then the fun begins. And I think the fun, we live in a highly, we can't take it for granted, a highly blessed generation where we can afford to be young and spiritually idealistic and frustrated with the system. A generation or two before us, that the system got smashed to pieces, and people had to build a new system with tremendous mesirus nefesh. And now we're kind of in a luxury. Yeah, I can go after any wonderful amount of yeshivas in the world. I can get millions of classes to download online. On my iPod, I have all of Shas in English. Do you know what I mean? So now I can afford to complain about the system. We're kind of spoiled brats in that way. But at the same time, we have authentic needs. And those needs, we should not remain hungry, but we need to channel that hunger and channel that thirst to finding authentic solutions. And I believe with all my heart, the solutions that we find and generate will be our greatest gift to the next generation and will allow our next generation to continue, God willing.
So besides, I know, and I'm very pro your promotion of your program, and I think that's very important. And I know that I watch your Facebook Live, and I know what you're doing, and I'm so excited about it that I think very few people are doing. Having that insight and recognizing that with all of the information that's out there, it's still, and again, it's for me also, it falls flat. It's not, dealing with the real challenges that a lot of us are dealing with. Are there other stuff out there, or is that what's really fueling you? As you're saying, like, I might be one of the only people right now that is trying to speak to this real problem, which is that people don't feel connected, that people don't feel turned on by their spirituality. And they go to shul, but they really enjoy doing something else.
I feel like I have to be very, very cautious in how I answer this question. I can answer it dishonestly, or I can answer it honestly and sound like an idiot.
We're all friends.
Okay. So I believe there are a lot of people out there searching for these answers, and we are part of those people searching. I believe that we found something unique, and I'm sure I sound like a massive Balgaiva when I say that. I am a massive Balgaiva probably, so that doesn't need to be a proof. I'm sure there's other proofs of that.
I don't think you do stuff like this. I think that's part of the par for the course. It's okay.
Okay, fine. So one of the things I always say, and I'm really true, if someone was doing the kind of stuff we're doing better, I would in a second quit the project, go and learn it by them, and start teaching that kind of stuff. Because I actually feel, people think I'm joking when I say this, I actually feel bitter and resentful that we had to create this program. And that's because I so much wish that there was some tzaddik or love that we could sit by their feet who worked this out previously. and there were in previous generations. I believe that were in previous generations, they're not our generation, and the people in our generation that know this stuff, I'm not saying nobody knows it, but what I found is that they're individuals that are doing it at such a high level, their gift is not to express it. And then, you know, they're just jumping out of their body into Vegas and Tikkun and you know, Halas and Makshavas and all these incredible things. And they're not always gifted in, can I teach every man Joe, every man Yaakov? How can I teach them how to do that? So our goal was, you know, in the creating of this, could we find a solution that spoke on a modern, relevant level? And you know, and the first rule of that is this generation is not, and I don't want to offend anyone saying this, I'm just talking about my own life experience, that the outreach that we're into is not that we have all the wisdom and everyone else that doesn't have Torah is dumb and stupid naive. I believe we're in one of the most unprecedented levels, that the generation is incredibly sophisticated with this knowledge of spirituality, of psychology, of consciousness, of self-development on an off-the-charts level. That's predicted, by the way, by the Zohar. That's predicted by all the mystical writings in the Chazal that it would be that way. And there's a gift and a miracle why that has to be that way. That's not for tonight. So the goal is, can we break down that generation is this generation is digesting things as products with systems, with tools that have been proved and studied to be highly effective, right? And Torah must have something to meet them within that level. Otherwise, what? And of course it does, but it's not developed as a system. And people say, doesn't the Ramchal have the system? Doesn't the Baal Shem Tov have the system? So the course is they all have a system. But when you study the systems, so much of what they really had to teach is not expressed. And you can get so lost in the pull of the details that the true transformational experiential elements are lost along the way. So the question is can you, number one, can you clarify that the true system itself as one, now isn't Chassidus different from Musa? Isn't Ramchal different from both? The answer is yes and no. They are different, but there are, I promise you, and this is not a proof, and this is not like theory, I think we can show this in a compelling way. 98% of what they held was absolutely identical. Whether you start here or start here, whether you emphasize this, whatever, again, that was the discussion point. There's so many axioms. There's much more in common between the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Shem Tov than between us and them, right? Between either of them and the rest of us, right? So what was it they knew? What was it they had in the line? So the first thing, the question we have is, can you crack the system? Can you under the system of consciousness under development? And the second is, now you have it as a system. This shouldn't just be theoretical. It should be something you can straight away move into access. And if you say you have to begin by knowing all of Shas and holding every chumrah before you can work 40 years to attack in one meter. So the raya is that all the secular psychology and a lot of New Age material and all this stuff is completely just, proving that wrong. Because people, if you read the definitions of Mr. Glading of Devakas, of Tikkun Amidas, you see people are doing that in self-help development courses fast in a 2-day weekend. It doesn't mean it's equal. It doesn't mean they're changed forever. But they're accessing tools when, if applied, could rapidly increase the quality of the transformation process. So the goal is, could you map out the system A? And B is, could you then create a system that the average person, not the high-level person, the high-level person doesn't need the map. They automatically intuit, what to do. The question is with the rest of us. So I haven't found people that seem to have done that as effectively yet as that. And I understand that sounds arrogant. I find it kind of depressing and frustrating. Whenever we find something good, we try and work with those people and build with those people. There's a lot of people that are starting to be religious people who are in secular courses and now teaching that information the Jewish way. And I say kol hakavod to them. It's painful and frustrating because I know that people will be taken more disconnected from that. There's a lot of people, without naming names, who are wonderful rabbis who have taught the importance of avoda and av, and even our generation have put out books to that. And they're doing wonderful work. I think they're putting on the map. And kol kavod to them. My challenge with a lot of the stuff I'm aware of it out there is it doesn't seem to come far down enough that it becomes truly, immediately, experientially practical to people, as much as secular self-help development seminars, etc. So the question is to find that middle ground where you're speaking with 100% authentic Torah. It's a comprehensive Torah system where it's the tools are from Torah, but there is powerful and transformative as secular elements. And that this sounds controversial to some, but it's 100% sourced in multiple Torah sources of Chassidus, of Kabbalah, of Chazal, is that there are many tools in our generation which can be from secular sources. Not only can be, that our job is to integrate up. That doesn't mean copy, it means something more sensitive and interesting than that. But part of us is to watch and is to learn and allow that to unravel the path of Nevuah and the path of Ruach HaKodesh and the path of the Baal Shem Tov. And when you study the materials, I'm talking Torah materials, and study in depth secular, you can't help but notice that the things they're understanding today are explicitly things that are hundreds and thousands of years ago in detail. So we can't help but acknowledge that phenomena. And what we're trying to seek to do in the project is just to begin to integrate that and create curriculums and make that accessible to many people, from religious to secular to a universal wisdom, and start to put that out there, start making a global contribution to ourselves and the world. So this is what we're doing. I think we seem to be quite ahead of the game in the comprehensiveness on the system, its effectiveness. And I hope other people catch up, and I hope other people eclipse us. And you will see that I'll be there in the front row when they do, and because we need that. We all need to be working together to pull this off. But it seems like we have a good contribution to make right now. Baruch Hashem, it's a chus to be a part of.
That's amazing. And it's also exciting to consider that throughout time, and just seeing, when I was at Or Sameach, for example, and again, not to sound in any way disrespectful, but in a lot of ways, I felt like I was hearing what had worked great in the 70s. And seeing that there is this change that's going on, and trying to figure out and kind of stumble through, how do you find the voice that will speak to the generation now that needs to be spoken to?
Yeah, I'm getting more and more cautious in my old age.
Yeah,
everything you said in that little monologue, I agree with you. But people like to beat me up more and more. It's a popular fashion these days. I hear it. What is the zeitgeist? Last time I used this in the Jewish organization, everyone laughed at me. I'm using fancy words like zeitgeist. I don't think it's quite a fancy word. But what is the spirit of our times? I think if you're watching the news and you're watching culture and you're watching social media, I think your eyes are wide open. You know how much self-transformation, you know how much mindfulness, you know how it's going into science, it's going into business, it's going into every field. You know what's happening in psychology. If you see how the left is in America, I'm not more right or more left. I think no religious Jew can ever call themselves right or left, because Torah is the Kava MC. It's supposed to integrate the best of both sides. But you see the generation moves more to the left, and the ideas of compassion, of unity, even if sometimes and often misguided to detrimental effect. You know what I mean? There's the sensitivities of love, of listening, of caring, of integration of people, of systems, of thoughts, of higher and lower worlds. All these sensitivities are coming together. And Judaism has to step up to that. We are at best in the 70s. And education, we've ceased to develop in many ways. And there's a point, havdil elef havdalas, but we're sophisticated people, we can go a sophisticated way. If you look at a company, I don't want to affect anyone who's buying shares, look at a company like Apple, right? You look at a company like Google. If you understand how startups work in our generation, and business work, you understand this thing that a company can be right on the cutting edge for many years. And then what happens is they're so confident in that position, they fall behind. Yeah. If you've got shares in Apple and you've got your eyes open, you can't help but notice that innovation basically stopped when Steve Jobs dropped dead. As much as they don't want you to believe that. And the clock is ticking, but anyone with their eyes open realize that. So what happens in any system is the more they believe they have the truth, and the more they believe they have the market, the faster they stop innovating. Things happen in waves. Things happen in waves, and waves come up. The reason that these Jewish educations are successful, go on today like they were in the 70s, is not because the network, is because they really did something extraordinary in the 70s. They tapped into the zeitgeist, and therefore they identified that as being powerful. And that it's very humbling to then have to go, what worked then isn't working now. But I think we're on the cusp of a new wave. I've had speeches that people, and names are not even going to say, top rabbis in Kyiv, behind the top boardroom, some of these wonderful, probably in your program, I think you mentioned it on your program, and they all will say that the things that worked before are no longer working, and and it has to be destroyed and rebuilt. And they say that with tremendous respect, having built those things themselves. But that wave is beginning, but the wave hasn't grabbed hold. Like the next generation of technology is coming out, but it hasn't really risen up yet. And I think anyone paying attention is going to go in this direction. It's going to go in with these sensitivities. But it's going to have to be, if for lack of a better word, a product, which is not just, hi, we're Jews and we have mindfulness too. It's too little too late, right? You have to, I see you and I raise you on. You have to come to the market with a new angle or the higher level. And that's on us, people like you, homeboy, Rabbi homeboy, that we have to do the work. We have to see what's out there, but we have to dig deep in our own tradition. And it's hard work, but it's a good opportunity.
I love you, and this is awesome. I want to ask two more pointed questions.
Point away. Yes.
Okay, I'm pointing right now. Did you stumble on this? I mean, meaning that, I did the more conventional and stayed in a very, I guess, what's conventional? I became an Orthodox Jew. I have that feeling that there's nothing conventional about it at all. But did you find this? Did you stumble on it? Did you? What's
the pronoun here? What's the this?
This being that you want to bring a profound sense of, again, I keep using that word mystical because it's hard to find a better word for it, but seeking out the unconventional path, going into the path of Hasidus. And
I don't believe anyone takes an unconventional path, no matter how individualistic the person is, unless they have 100% self-interest in that.
Okay.
Right? I understand I took an unconventional path, but it was 100% because this is what I want. I was always a caring soul about the generation. I'm always a big thinker and a big picture person. And I'm thinking what the clown needs. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that any innovator in Kiruv in Jewish education really says what's good for them and what will I generate for them because they do that. Even though they'll tell you that in leadership programs, and it's totally not true. Right. It's because you are obsessed with this for yourself. Right? And that's what creates greatness. And I can give you Kabbalistic sources. In the Gemara, it's called Mashali B'chafetz. Right? You need to learn what your heart wants because that's when you bring your Chidushay Torah. Because your heart is created to your Keta, and Keta is linked to Ruach HaKodesh, and you're only going to bring in something newly true and newly fantastic. When you think, I, Daniel Katz, am going to die unless I get spiritual experience in my own tradition, and I can't hold on anymore, and I've tried to hold on for years, and I'm doing all the things they told me to do, and I like Torah, and I like learning, I like the stuff, but I'm still empty, so give it to me and bring it down. And when you're starving, that's why you get that inspiration. That's why you make those connections. That's why you open up that book. But there's 1,000 books on the bookshelf, but one day you happen to walk into that chair, and one day that book opens, and one day you get that, and there's something that someone says that to you, and you connect that and that, you go, well, that's an opportunity. And then the serendipity, the hashgacha, process, it comes together because you want it for you. And I just had to interrupt your flow to say that if people chase what's meaningful for them, that's when the generation will explode with opportunity, the Jewish world. Sometimes in the film world, we're stopped from doing that. If I was building a Jewish leader course, and I say this hopefully one day, giving away our secrets, I would say that so much of the learning, get smicha, good, get smicha. Do that before you come to us. Now that you've come to us, I want you to walk out with a PhD with world-class knowledge of one area in Torah. And if it's not Daniel Katz's Torah, you're into self-development, I want to be in self-development. No, that's something that I did. What's something that interests you? Because that's when you see huge chedushim, and that's when you see world-class product. And because it's something you gave a damn about. And that there's no way in the smicha development program where we develop people on that level. And therefore there's a big loss of product, of quality of product, of global contribution because of that. Now I'm just venting, but thanks for letting me get that out of my system.
No, I love that. And it could be that you answered my second question in that. So it was even more time consuming.
Two for the price of one, yes.
But let me clarify if I understood that you answered the question. My question was going to be, when you're looking at the demographic to be most effective, and I noticed, it's funny because I feel like I could be most effective now with the ever expanding definition of young professionals, which is now extending up to, 60 plus.
Young at heart.
Right. But when you look at where you can truly make the biggest impact. So, I'm thinking, I worked with college students. Now I'm working with young professionals, and I'm working very strongly with teens. And I'm like, oh, teens, is that? But then I was thinking about, do you work with young children? So the question is, at what stage do you feel that it is most important to try to start speaking about these issues? Meaning, is it just going to be a reflection? The way I was potentially taking your answer is you speak to where you are now. So you'll speak to your peers and that will slowly filter down. Or is there a ideal stage where you start to tell the kids, the teens, the young grown-ups, the old grown-ups, the old people, like, no, you should be working with what works for really you? Is this a universal lesson, or are you trying to like really hone in on one specific demographic?
I want to clarify the question. You're saying, how do we choose the right demographic for these teachings? Is that what you're saying, to affect maximum change?
How do we choose and how do you choose?
This is a massively heated debate behind the scenes in our project.
Awesome. That's not the end, right?
Deadly pause. Are we allowed to pause it there? Is that some kind of, I'll never work in this.
I'm editing it out. I'm too ADD for pauses. Go.
We just lost 80% of the audience, which is what I wanted to do because now I can speak honestly.
Yeah.
There's what we call, we have a few what we call battlefronts of elevation, right? Who could you introduce this to? An extremely generalized demographic breakdown. There's the religious world.
Mm-hmm.
And by religious world, I'm starting initially by saying Haredi, not that I think they're the only religious, right? Then there's the kind of English-speaking, open-minded Haredi. Then there's the Dati Lumi world, which is a whole thing unto itself, modern Orthodox, etc. And then there's the second realm, which is Kiruv. And Kiruv is present tense Kiruv infrastructure. That means I'm connected to some groups in Asia or some groups in New York, and they already have Cheva, like you, doing wonderful work with Jam on campus there. So Cheva, I know, like you, and they bring in there. So existing Kiruv infrastructure, and then there's new Kiruv infrastructure, which is you can build your own organizations of frontline Kiruv as a whole new model that we have planned. So there's that. And then there's what we call universal wisdom, which is a whole other discussion, but definitely the future of Jewish education, which is 80% of Jews are so assimilated today that they think they're non-Jews, and therefore the only way to reach them is basically to change the world's perception of Judaism as an authentically powerful wisdom tradition that is up there with the best of them. And we're not even registered as a blip on the map. Now, where is the best place to begin? Now, you can sit in our boardroom and go back and forth and debate with us for hours. The question is like, this is the thing that we're trying to say. You ready? The rule is the law of infusion of innovation. If you're not familiar with it, you should wiki it. It's a very cool and interesting thing. Is 100% right? I don't know, but you should know all about it. Is how much of a system do you need to turn over to affect the whole system? There's the innovators, there's the early adopters, there's the late adopters, et cetera, et cetera. So the rule, according to this, is 15 to 18%, which, whether it's exactly 15% or 18%, the fact that it's not Chazal, I could show you sources of Chazal that suggest this. It's not suggest that, but talk about similar patterns like this. The rule that we need to know is you don't have to get everybody. What you need to get is enough people and the right people. That's the number one rule. That's a rule in marketing and branding in a lot of areas. You don't have to get anyone. You have to get 10 to 15%. And you have to get the right people. And that's rule number one. Number two is, therefore, what you're after is low-hanging fruit, because life is short and funding is short and staff is short. And my personal time and energy is short. So you have to go after people who are interested, who are capable, who have minimum emotional and hashkafic resistance. And that basically leaves you and me, Rabbi Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sold. I'm in.
Game on.
Right.
So what now's the area I'll be cautious. Who I would have thought would be the ideal target seemed to have so many blocks to it that it becomes heartbreaking and challenging. And therefore, what we're shifting and pivoting is the cool word to use today, is don't think so much about it. Don't reach out to build relationships with people that may have hashkafic resistance. Don't reach out to build relations with organizations that may have political motivations to block. Don't convince people that need it, that may not be willing yet to hear they need it. Because there's so many people that are hungry. And therefore, set up a tent and give something good and contribute value and care and allow that to determine themselves. There's enough people that are interested. Now, if people come to me, when people come to me and they say, I've got this Jewish education leadership and this startup idea, I sit down and we're normal, we break it down. You know these people, you have an audience on Facebook and social media, these people come to you. Always start with what you've got and build out, you know. But I think the truth is, as much as you can have a good business strategy thing, who should our target demographic? At the end of the day, there's almost been no Jewish initiative ever, especially in the last couple of years, that has just randomly pointed to a demographic. We're going after, 48 to 60 of this bracket, and just gone and did it. Chabad goes to a town and they set up, a shop, and they build relationships.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to show me an organization, we can be smart and say, who's your demographic, etc. What I found for Elevation, after all, as clever as I was and smart as I was, is we got broken and smashed by trying to build relationships and trying to convince people they needed the value within a lot of the world that you can get to. And there's so much fear and politics and whatever, it's heartbreaking. But there's so many people that are hungry. And I believe if you go after the low-hanging fruit and you build a critical mass and you care and you show that you can be effective, I believe that, and I'm sorry to use this word in a business professional context, but I believe that God wants something like this, and he could just build that out, and he could build that out. There's no end to the beauty and magic of an organic growth of a movement through word of mouth, through people that are truly effective, right? And see where that goes to. And I think that should also be a part of the demographic discussion. So that's me saying not too much that I don't have to say, but enough to kind of talk out. And if you want to get more specific with me, I'm happy to talk about here are the 15 kind of types that I think enjoy what we do. But in a general sense, in a cloudy sense, that's what I would say now.
That's beautiful. The idea that actually having Emunah in the work that you do and letting God sort of find the people that need to hear from you and selling to the people that already want to buy, as opposed to trying to convince people. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. All I would say is that works. That doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for every organization. Certainly doesn't work for every business. You have to have a very strong distinction in the market to pull that off. You have to have a quality enough product that people will buy into it. So there has to be enough that makes it distinct. I'm talking in a business sense. I'm not sure if that's your audience, like a shkafic sense, right? However you want to do it. But we assume that we have something quality and we have something that people need, and we assume that there's enough distinction in our product. And what we also have, which is already a fan base, and we have an audience of people that have been following us for a while, which is wonderful. So that in a business sense, that's enough of a foundation that you can just go to town and deliver on. Not every organization, every educator is in that section, and therefore we would have to take another approach and understanding. I'm just saying that vis-a-vis, it's the same thing of making a gadol, making it tzaddik. The famous tzaddik who says, someone said his avoda is so unique. You didn't get that from your father. You made that up. He said, this actually, I'm just like my father. Just like my father's avoda was unique, my avoda was unique. Do you know what I mean? So that's also true. You can't see everything that every startup did, every Jewish education initiative said, and we're going to do the same. Those things often never work. If you're an amazing coach, which I know you are, you have to say, when do you apply? When do you see comment? When are you different? And you need to take a new path, the road on less traveled, And so that's why I'm saying what we're doing is awesome for us. It's not necessarily right for everybody, and a different approach is needed, which is part of, to mechanech someone al pi darko, in education, that's what we're saying is lacking, right? That's also in building an organization that's lacking. So we're trying to find our way through the forest.
Okay, so I really need to have you back, but I want to ask specifically the project that you are most excited about, which you've clearly shown is your passion project and what keeps you awake and what you perceive as truly lacking in the world. What, practically speaking, when this is being brought down into the world of action, what do you got for us? How do we find you?
It's called the Elevation Project. You can probably find it at elevationproject.global. By the time this video comes out, it's going to be called elevation.global. And, we're going to be shipping out in the next few months and over the coming years, incredible curriculum and all of self-development and spiritual development. We have an incredible project we're launching. It should be up and running by the time you see this wonderful video series. It's called the Elevation Academy, and you can do an in-depth intellectual, spiritual, experiential study online and go through a whole 8-level curriculum, which we built for years and is really beautiful and something we're really proud of, and it's profound and it's Torah sourced, and it's a very beautiful thing. We'll think people are going to enjoy it. It's a monthly subscription thing. You'll check it out there. The Elevation Academy on elevation.global. And then what we're doing with that is that we're going to come to cities and do real experiential seminars and workshops. And the goal is to teach it, right? And have people doing it. That's wonderful. And to create an online learning chabur international of people coming around together, doing this together, learning this together, of all different ishkafas and no ishkafas, just people working together in self-development. But also what we want to do is we want to get this into schools, and we want to teach this to rabbis and rebbitzins and mishpiyim and psychologists. And we want to empower others to take this and personalize this, right? We want to open up these teachings and Torah teachings. It's not a Daniel Katz thing. People will see that it unlocks Rabbi Nachman for you, it unlocks Tanya for you, it unlocks Yisroel Salanta for you. So in the coming months, in the coming years, we're going to be rolling out teacher training programs, educator project therapy. We're going to offer yeshivas that people can use the curriculums in their own yeshivas. They can use that. We can train their educators. They can outsource to our educators. It's a whole initiative. And where we can take it, how far we take it, is as much as we can find amazing people to be a part of this and lead it as well, then I can empower others and they can empower me. So it's a big thing, but there's lots of fun things to check out, and people should check out the website and then get enough leads from there to continue.
Elevation.global. That's correct?
Yeah, you're good at this. That's right.
Good.
Break it down. Make it easy for them.
And last, if people wanted to reach you personally, how do we do that?
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't. No. Okay.
They should pick up a cup and tie a piece of string to it and throw the cup in my general direction. Through the website, there's probably a contact email, and they should reach out in that general direction. They should contact you. You know where I live.
Thank you. That's all I'm looking for, is more work. I appreciate that. Okay, Rabbi Katz, thank you so much. You're a champion. Good luck with everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, my friend. Much atzlacha with the podcast, and keep inspiring it and spreading the good word.
Amen. Thank you so much.